Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2019 Inter-Service Industry Training, Simulation, and Education Conference is now called to order. I am Brian Holmes, and for the past year, it has been my privilege to serve as your conference chair. General Perkins, Mr. Matthews, General Carlisle, Admiral Robb, other general and flag officers, both active and retired, distinguished guests, representatives of allied nations, exhibitors and conference attendees from government, industry, and academia. On behalf of this year's lead service, the United States Air Force, and the entire conference committee, I welcome you to the 53rd anniversary of the world's largest modeling, training, simulation, and education event, ITSEC 2019. I'd like to invite this year's lead service executive, Colonel Phil Carpenter from the United States Air Force, to the podium for the presentation of the flag, which will be followed by the national anthem sung by U.S. Navy Captain Retired Bill Roto-Rooter, followed by an invocation offered by Ms. Maria Buford, U.S. Marine Corps PM for Training Systems. Please stand.
Honor Guard, present the colors.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Dear gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to see a brand new day. Thank you for all who have traveled from around the city, from around the state, from around the country, and around the world to assemble here today. I'm asking for your blessing and protection over this entire inter-service industry training, simulation, and education conference. Please bless our partners of the military, our partners in industry, our partners in academia. I also ask your blessing on our members of Congress who have already graced us with their presence. Please renew our strength and energy of each and every individual who has worked tirelessly in order to make sure that this 2019 symposium will be one of the most successful thus far. I'm asking that you provide continued traveling grace, mercy, and protection to those individuals who are still making plans or are already on their way to Orlando, Florida. Protect those who are in the air, on sea, and on dry land. I thank you for each and every individual who is attending this symposium, those who have made numerous visits in the past, as well as those who are going to experience all that ITSEC has to offer for the first time. I thank you for all the former conference chairs, program chairs, for it is because of them that we have such a rich legacy of wisdom and knowledge for the current conference chair and program chairs to draw from. Thank you for all the members and employees of the National Training and Simulation Association, as well as the National Defense Industrial Association, who are responsible for such an awesome gathering. Please bless those who are in positions of leadership and influence in those two organizations as they continue to provide insight and direction in so many areas and on so many levels. As we proceed forth in this symposium, continue to steady us, strengthen us, and protect us. Bless us. Bless each and every moderator, writer, contributor, and speaker who will share of the insight and knowledge that they have gained in their respective areas of expertise. Thank you again, Heavenly Father, for all things, great and small. Amen, amen, and amen.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the large screens for this year's theme video.
This new design has a variable geometric pitch across the surface of the propeller to provide a uniform angle of attack.
In 2015, as one of our ITSEC industry volunteers, I was selected to join the conference leadership team, and my journey culminates this year as your conference chair. As the chair, I have had the extraordinary opportunity to work closely with this year's lead service, collaborating to develop a theme that we use to shape and mold the development of the 2019 conference program, consisting of a superb collection of technical papers, tutorials, special events, and professional development workshops. The video helps to illustrate this year's theme, winning the war of cognition by pushing readiness and lethality boundaries, and reminds us that future successes for both military and industry organizations requires an investment in science, technology, engineering, and math to create the workforce of the future that can continue to push these boundaries. This week provides the perfect platform for military and industry to convene and collaborate as competition evolves from a purely kinetic conflict into a battle to win the war of cognition, the decision space either before or during the conflict, whether the conflict may be a military battle or a commercial battle to dominate a marketplace. One of the core tenets of the ITSEC conference is to create an impact and to make a difference. The program and the collaboration is but one of the many ways we strive to make a difference. Our Admiral Fred Lewis and Leonard P. Gollibin postgraduate scholarships, as well as our newly created Barbara McDaniels undergraduate scholarships, recognizes individuals that made a difference in STEM education by awarding scholarships in their names to students pursuing careers in the fields of modeling, simulation, training, and education. In this, the 40th anniversary of the inter-service collaboration of the ITSEC conference, this term honors the brave men and women who have chosen to make a difference in the U.S. military and the militaries of our partner countries. Our America Teachers program is designed to familiarize STEM teachers with the field of modeling and simulation to help them guide young people to preparing a career in modeling and simulation. Teachers like Stacy Pierce, who retired from a successful career in MS&T only to make a difference in the lives of underprivileged Native American and Hispanic students as a teacher. So please join me in a round of applause to Stacy and all of America's teachers that are here this week to their dedication for making a difference in the lives of our future workforce. As your conference chair, I could tell you about my journey that led me to the stage. I'm not going to bore you with those details, though, because the past 31 years of my career have been blessed beyond measure. I will tell you that, but the first 20, I will admit, was all about me, what I could get from the industry and what it offered me as a career. However, the past 10 years have been focused on giving back to the MS&T industry and the communities in which I serve. My initial foray was to participate in the ITSEC subcommittees, but then I branched out working with nonprofit organizations like Fairways for Warriors. They provide hope, healing, and assistance to combat wounded veterans, and I've also raised money for STEM scholarships and other opportunities to make a difference. And I feel that this service has been the true highlight of my career, as it has been a blessing for both me and my family. Therefore, the challenge I lay down to all of you today is to use the information presented to you this week to inspire you to find new ways to make a difference. To the services, I challenge you to continue to make a difference by educating and training brave men and women charged with defending our freedoms. To our industry partners, I challenge you to continue to invest in the innovation needed to win the war of cognition and other complicated challenges faced by our military and commercial customers. To the teachers and educators, I challenge you to find new ways to use the novel approaches to teach new generations of technologists through paper sessions and technical content presented this week. The conference itself is a testimony to the desire to making a difference. It requires over 250 volunteers to plan and execute what you're going to experience this week, and trust me, it will be an amazing experience. As Ronald Reagan so eloquently said, there is no limit to the amount of good you can do if you don't care who gets the credit, and that summarizes what this conference is all about. So I urge all in attendance today to please take that message to heart and help make a difference not just in the MS&T community, but also in the local communities in which you serve. While the past 53 years of ITSEC has had a distinctly military flavor, the conference also makes a difference by showing other communities and disciplines how MS&T has universal application. Industries such as healthcare, transportation, energy, manufacturing have embraced and benefited from the power of modeling simulation training. This week, you will also see how cybersecurity community is embracing MS&T to win the war of cognition, as evidenced by the numerous technical papers, tutorials, and workshops that will be presented this week. In fact, this unique blend of peer-reviewed papers and presentations, coupled with over 400 exhibitors demonstrating the most relevant and cutting-edge technologies, is what sets this conference apart from others. Under the leadership of my trusted partner and this year's program chair, Ms. Jennifer Arnold, this group has created a program consisting of 126 technical papers, 41 special events, 18 tutorials, and 9 professional development workshops, as well as other special programs. The strength of our program is due to the efforts of those volunteers that make a difference with the amount of time they spend, usually on their own time, away from their families. So each year we continue to strive to create new events that push the boundaries, such as this year's Iron Dev competition, where developer teams are given a challenge, and like a Food Network show, they use a secret ingredient to help solve warfighter challenges. That should be fun. I encourage you to go check that out. We also have a new medical focus event entitled Patient Safety in Healthcare, the Role of Modeling and Simulation, to continue the dialogue surrounding patient safety and the role of M&S that M&S has in supporting patient safety across healthcare. One of the other highlights of every ITSEC conference is the presentation by the ITSEC Fellow. The ITSEC Fellow program recognizes an individual whose contributions have fundamentally shaped the simulation and training capabilities being delivered today. In other words, the fellow made a difference. On behalf of the entire ITSEC community, we are pleased to recognize this year's fellow, Dr. Richard Fujimoto from the Georgia Institute of Technology. Hopefully many of you were able to attend his presentation yesterday afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Fujimoto, for making a difference. I would also like to extend my gratitude to the leadership of this conference and the many volunteers who have made it possible. It has been an honor to serve as your conference chair. But Teddy Roosevelt said it best when he said, "The best executive is the one who has the sense to pick good men and women to do what he needs done, and the self-restraint to keep from meddling with them while they do it." Thanks to our talented and passionate volunteers, I have truly been able to enjoy the journey as conference chair. And a very special thanks to all the men and women who have served or are currently serving in the armed forces. My hope is that we can all recommit this week to work together to win the war of cognition and provide them with the best training, simulation, and education solutions possible. A big round of applause for them. So it is now my privilege to recognize a few of the very special guests with us here today. I'd like each one to stand briefly as their name is called, and I'd appreciate it if the audience would hold your applause until they have all been introduced. First off, General Stephen Seve Wilson, Commanding General, Vice Chief of Staff of the Air Force, Arlington, and our Government Keynote Speaker. Our industry keynote speaker, Mr. Mark Matthews, CEO of the Quantum Group and President of Quantum 3D. General Hawk Carlisle, United States Air Force retired, President and Chief Executive Officer of the National Defense Industrial Association. Rear Admiral James Robb, U.S. Navy retired, President of the National Training and Simulation Association. Brigadier General Michael Sloan, United States Army, Program Executive Officer, Simulation, Training and Instrumentation Command, and the Army Principal, Mr. Jesse Campos. Captain Tim Hill, Commanding Officer, United States Navy, Naval Air Warfare Center Training Systems Division, and the Navy Principal, Ms. Diana Teal. Colonel Louis Lara, United States Marine Corps, Program Manager for Training Systems Command, and the new Marine Corps Principal, Ms. Corin Oderman. Mr. Greg Knapp, Chief, Strategy and Training, Office of the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Readiness and Training. And from our lead service, Colonel Phil Carpenter, United States Air Force, Chief, Simulator Programs Office, Air Force Material Command, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio, and the Air Force Principal, Mr. Tony Del Sasso. Please join me in welcoming our distinguished guests and dignitaries. Now I'd like to welcome Colonel Carpenter back to the stage for his opening remarks.
Good morning, ITSEC 2019, and let me begin by extending a warm welcome to everyone, especially our congressional members, senior military leaders, representatives from our coalition and partner nations, industry collaborators, academic partners, and last but not least, all the service members who are here today. It is truly an honor for me to represent the United States Air Force as the service executive and lead service for ITSEC 2019. And since this conference is largely about training, I wanted to share something that I've learned over the last 18 months. It's extremely challenging to plan and execute the world's largest modeling and simulation training event. Given the level of effort required to pull this off, I'd be remiss if I didn't take a moment to express my sincere thanks and appreciation to all those who worked tirelessly to bring together what is ITSEC 2019. So ITSEC has a lot of moving pieces, and it has been truly humbling to watch an amazing group of folks from NTSA, industry, academia, OSD, and all the services come together. The planners for this event have truly exceeded every expectation, and I've been inspired by the team's dedication and commitment to this important task. I can tell you, after spending so much time with the planning team, that their dedication and commitment is contagious, and I have no doubt that the 17,000 plus attendees here at ITSEC 2019 will be equally impressed. So, as an Air Force year, we were given the honor of finding a keynote speaker. Since this year's theme is winning the war of cognition by pushing readiness and lethality boundaries, we wanted to find the best of the best. Someone who's truly one of the Air Force's foremost expert on training, readiness, and lethality. Fortunately, we found that speaker with General Stephen W. Seve Wilson, Vice Chief of the United States Air Force. As Vice Chief, General Wilson presides over the Air Staff and serves as a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Requirements Oversight Council and Deputy Advisory Working Group. He assists the Chief of Staff with organizing, training, and equipping more than 685,000 active Guard and Reserve civilian forces serving in the United States and overseas. General Wilson received his commission from Texas A&M in 1981. He's had multiple flying tours and led a bomber, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, mobility, aeromedical evacuation, and airborne command and control operations supporting Operations Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom, and Combined Joint Task Force Horn of Africa. General Wilson has also held numerous command positions, including the Joint Functional Component Commander for Global Strike Command and Air Force Global Strike Command. General Wilson is a command pilot with more than 4,500 flying hours and 680 combat hours. Prior to his current assignment, the General was the Deputy Commander for the United States Strategic Command Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to present our Vice Chief, General Wilson.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to be here in Orlando. Colonel Carpenter, thanks for that nice introduction. Thanks for what AFL-CMC does to make this ITSEC conference possible. So I was talking backstage, I was told this was the largest conference we've ever had with nearly 17,000 participants. So that's fantastic. So to NTSA and NDIA and all the industry partners here, thanks for what you do, and thanks for assembling this crowd to get us together to help in some really key challenges that we face as a nation. Now, our Defense Department is embarking on the largest transformation, I would argue, in decades. And we don't just want industry's help. We need industry's help, and we need it badly. So thanks for the partnership that you all have with us to make our militaries that much better and stronger. And I'd also like to say thanks to all the soldiers, sailors, and Marines who are serving right now and serving in a time of war, and for gifting us with your time and your talent and your treasure and your passion and your commitment to really moving the ball forward for our nation and our Defense Department. When I looked at the agenda this year, it's clear you all get it. I like that you recognize that pushing readiness and lethality boundaries can't happen without mastering the cognitive domain. I like that you acknowledge that this isn't just an Air Force effort or an Army effort or any of the services effort, and it's bigger than the Department of Defense, and it's bigger than all of government. This is a whole of nation effort. And I love that you recognize that change must happen at the speed of relevance, and that taking decades to field capabilities is no longer viable in a world of rapid technological change. But you know what else I like about being here? I get to hang out with you guys, hang out with some cool toys, right? While my boss is back in DC taking meetings, this is the cool stuff I get to do, right? It's pretty cool. So I've been a huge fan, and I can't tell you how many times I've crashed in the sim. And thank God I did, because it's kept me safe while I've been flying. Like our sister services, our Air Force is heavily investing in things like virtual reality and advanced modeling to help reform how we train and season our forces. And one of the best parts of my job is I get to travel around the country, visiting our airmen and seeing some of the stuff they're doing. And I was at Randolph this last spring as they were working with some technology for what we're calling pilot training next. It's really cool. It's going to change the way we do pilot training. I was also at Kirtland Air Force Base within the last couple of years, and they asked me if I wanted to fly a C-130 simulator, an MC-130 simulator. And I said, sure. So I sat down at a card table, they pulled out a laptop and put some augmented reality on my top of my head, asked me to put my hands out in front of me, recognized my hands, and now I'm inside of a C-130 simulator with 4K resolution. I can see all the cockpit and the gauges and everything moving, and I'm flying over the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, and it looked absolutely real. It was incredible. And just a few months back, I also got to see another cool simulator. All right, for all the Air Force folks in the audience, a little viz recce time. What kind of airplane do we have there? Yeah, that's what I was saying too. They said, hey, sir, we're going to take you to a C-130 Loadmaster training. And they took me to a simulator or to a hangar like that with nothing in it. And I was like, what are you guys doing here? They said, stand right here. Again, they put a headset on my head. And now I'm walking around inside of a C-130. And it was frigging unreal, mind-blowing. It was a complete game changer to our maintenance crews. Think about how tech orders are displayed virtually, and you don't have to wait on airplanes to train and for a part to break to practice fixing it. And that's the type of technology that you are bringing to the front every single day. And it's just one of the many examples of how your efforts are transforming the defense training community, and you should be really, really proud of what you're delivering. But beyond being cool, it's also really important for our nation. Modeling a sim is a big part of building a lethal and ready force. Our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines have demonstrated time and again that they'll leverage whatever tools they have to sharpen their skills before going into combat. Right now, somewhere in Afghanistan, a soldier's rehearsing their upcoming patrol with rocks on a table. They're teaching a new private how to execute safe convoy operations. Our Marines have built entire villages, complete with actors, to prepare for the mental challenges they're going to face in close quarters combat. When the Navy SEALs strapped off on a helicopter to the UBL's compound in Abbottabad, it wasn't the first time they'd ever been there. They'd rehearsed it time and time again before they ever deployed forward. And I guarantee you, there's a fighter pilot in a bar right now mentoring a young lieutenant with, so there I was, Lieutenant. We've come a long way to provide men and women increasingly realistic training, but the growing complexity of both the global landscape and of modern warfare requires that we continue to adapt, improve, and increase our training and simulation capability. So let me take a few moments to share with you what I see on the global landscape and how the threat is changing and how we need to adapt to stay ahead. So what's changing? I'd say a lot, or maybe I should rephrase the question and say what's not changing. But let's start here with our little planet Earth. When you zoom out, you see a globe that's transforming literally before our eyes. For most of our history, life on this planet remained relatively unchanged. And I would argue that if you lived at the beginning of at the turn of the 20th century, life didn't change much from the beginning of the first century. But all of that has changed exponentially over the last 100 years as the Industrial Revolution took hold, followed by unprecedented advancement in technology, and I'd say as we start this next digital revolution. But if you look back just upon our short Air Force history in the last 70 so years, the population of the planet has tripled. When we started as an Air Force, the population of the planet was 2.3 billion. Today it's 7.6 billion. And over the next 20 years, it will grow by another 2 billion. And while population growth is declining in most developing states, in the poorest 47 countries, they're expected to see their populations double. So what do you think that's going to do for challenges like migration, some of which we're seeing today? How will those countries cope? In the last 100 years, we fought 2 world wars and spent 4 tense decades where the survival of our experiment in democracy and the West's vision of a liberal world order was an open question. And as transformative as the past 100 years have been, I would contend, strap in, you haven't seen anything yet, because the next 100 are going to be crazy. Advanced technology and its incredible power is no longer monopolized by nation states. Now, it's hard to see up here on this stage with all those lights in my hand, but somebody, I'm going to ask you, raise your hand if you do not have a smartphone today. Okay, I don't see a single hand. What that says is every one of you now has more power in your pocket or your hand than the President of the United States did on 9/11. Think about that. And so do 5 billion people around the globe. But probably the most disruptive of all is the reemergence of great power competition with Russia and especially China. Quite frankly, they don't share our values. They have a different view of the world and how they operate, and they're trying to reset global norms. So our national defense strategy does a pretty, I think, excellent job of laying this all out. It acknowledges that we're emerging from a period of strategic atrophy, one in which our competitive military advantage has been eroding, one characterized by decline in the longstanding rule-based international order, and one in which interstate competition, not terrorism, is a primary concern of U.S. national security. Now, threats from nations like Iran and North Korea continue to present national security challenges and will need to be managed, and we will manage them. But the central challenge to U.S. prosperity and security is the reemergence of long-term strategic competition by revisionist powers like China and Russia. Now, for many years, China was considered backwards, a developing state. But just a few decades ago, China barely made it on any chart of consequence. But over the past few decades, their growth has been absolutely tremendous. When I came into service, China's GDP was less than $300 billion. The IMF now pegs it at about $15 trillion. When I joined the service, China's trade with the outside world was under $40 billion. It's increased 100-fold since then. And for every 2-year period since 2008, China has added more value to their economy than the entire GDP of India. China isn't backwards anymore. It's a legitimate competitor. We're in competition with a nation state that can do a couple of things that you see here. It landed a rover on the dark side of the moon, and it actually grew cotton there. Those are both firsts for mankind. We didn't do that. They're mastering quantum computing at labs in Shanghai, also in California. They're making huge strides in artificial intelligence, machine vision, space, and hypersonic, just to name a few areas. Those are just a few of China's mega projects, and what I contend why it's different is China is all in to win. It's an all-of-nation effort. It's industry, it's academia, it's national labs, it's military. It's what they call military-civil fusion. And it would be a mistake to underestimate China. Not only can they compete, I contend they have an advantage. I'm going to call it 15-1, what you see there. Because I'd say our economies are nearly the same size, nearly 1-to-1. We'd say we have higher GDP. There's economists out there that would say they have higher purchasing power parity. We had one of our best years ever. It grew at 2.9%. They had one of their worst in 38 years last year at 6.7%. So 2 times our growth rate. Their population is over 4 times the United States. And last year they produced 8 times the number of STEM graduates. And they're predicting that in the next 5 years, that number of STEM graduates will be 15-1. That's what I call our 15-1 challenge, 8-4-2-1. If you freeze those 4 statistics and you fast forward those for 10 years, let me ask who the peer and who the near peer will be. So I think we need to start thinking more like David and less like Goliath. Add to what I just mentioned, and I'd say China also views this as their century, their time, and their growth is not just economic. They're working to complete their military modernization by 2035 and to posture themselves as the dominant country, the dominant nation in Asia, and to compete for global influence around the globe. So when we prepare our soldiers, sailors, and Marines for the battlefield of 2035, it will be against a peer, a competitor with the will, the power, and the urgency to compete and win. And as Jim Baker from the Office of Net Assessment has said, we have never faced an adversary like China who could match us economically. And whatever we're doing, however hard we're trying, it's not enough. But if we were to go to war today, we'd win, no question, no doubt about it. But the force we have today is not the force we'll need to continue to deter conflict against a peer like China. Across the joint force, we took a hard look at our concepts of operations, our force design, and stacked them up against the National Defense Strategy. Now, each service is making modifications based on those reviews. Here's what we recognize in the Air Force. To meet the National Defense Strategy, the Air Force we need must fundamentally do 4 things. First, we must connect the joint force. The future force must be seamlessly connected, machine to machine, to allow us to operate at the speeds of relevance that we're going to need in the 21st century peer fight. We're investing a lot of money over this next 5-year defense plan to make that possible. Our chief would tell you it's the most important thing that we'll do. More importantly, it's not just an Air Force effort. We recently got with all the Joint Chiefs and the chairman, and we signed a memo to the Secretary of Defense stating the effect. The Joint All-Domain C2 is the #1 priority for the department. I know you spent a lot of time yesterday talking about how to connect and integrate simulators from across our various weapon systems. I can't overstate how important that is. Individual weapon system simulators can help our men and women become proficient tacticians, but it's their ability to integrate and connect that will differentiate us against a peer threat. And no one is going to win alone. Second, the Air Force will need to dominate in space. The days where uncontested space can be assumed are over. We need to be prepared to project power in and through a contested space environment and deny our adversaries the ability to do the same. That's why you've seen recent moves to stand up the U.S. Space Command and why we're working with Congress to stand up a U.S. Space Force. Everyone in this business can appreciate this. Space is essential to everything that we do across the Joint Force. If we lose in space, we lose, period. So as you develop simulators of the future, we need to take a hard look at how we replicate operations in denied and contested environments, and that needs to include space. Third, your Air Force will have to generate combat power at speed, range, and mass necessary to win in a great power competition from both inside and outside contested regions. Instead of spending days to close single kill chains, we have to move to a future where we'll close thousands of kill chains in hours, not days. And that will need to happen across the whole Joint Force, and it will need to happen seamlessly. So having the ability to replicate the complexities of combined arms warfare in contested environments will be hugely important. And finally, your Air Force, along with the rest of the Joint Force and our coalition partners, will have to deliver assured logistics under attack, because the days of assuming our bases are uncontested power projection platforms are gone. So I see that we're spending time here talking about additive manufacturing and 3D printing. Those are awesome, and I know our AFAMS folks will be very interested in the capabilities like that, because anything that we can do to reduce vulnerabilities of our logistics tail will be important to future warfare. So I offer up that as framing as you go into your service panels in the coming days. That's the sort of consideration that we're looking for as we make the hard calls on where to invest our next tax dollars. For those of you who are building capabilities our Department of Defense needs, you'll be happy to know we've got a really easy process to get you on contract. Let me walk you through this real quick. Okay, I am so there with you, right? Our traditional acquisition processes are too slow, too hard, too unwieldy, and they're particularly poor at non-traditional defense partners. So the Air Force is doing something different. Our new Secretary of the Air Force, Barbara Barrett, is serious about driving reform and continuing to field capability at the speed of relevance. We consider rapid capability development to be a warfighting imperative. And to make that possible, the Air Force Chief of Acquisitions, Dr. Will Roper, and his team have been working really hard to help put common sense back into our acquisition communities. Under his leadership, we've cut more than 100 years of time off of our major acquisition programs. We've taken significant steps to open up the department to more non-traditional players than before. And we've done this through small business innovation research programs, through the use of 804 authorities from Congress, and through industry pitch days. I was at our first pitch day in New York City last spring. We put 51 companies on contract and shelled out almost $9 million in just one day. We had one-page contracts delivered on the spot to a variety of efforts, and we did it in just minutes. And we had one member tell us that it was faster to get on contract with the Air Force than it was to get a beer in New York City. I was like, can you repeat that again? I want to make sure this crowd heard that. It's faster to get on contract with the Air Force than it is to get a beer in New York City. We've got 12 pitch days this year, including the simulator pitch day that we'll be hosting right here on Thursday. So whether we get a chance to pull you on contract on Thursday or some other vehicle, I just can't tell you how much I appreciate your help, and in fact, how much we need your help. And if you've got ideas, I encourage you to reach out to our folks here on site or to the AFAMS team here in Orlando. We'd love to talk. Okay, so I've been talking a while, and I know you got a lot of great events lined up, so let me leave you with this. As the Vice Chief, I get to spend a lot of time working with the senior leaders across all of our services and our international partners. And to a person, they tell you the same thing, that the most important weapon system on the battlefield isn't a tank or an airplane or a submarine or a satellite. The most important weapon system is our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. And everything else, while important, is just stuff. And it's not capability until it's put in the hands of trained and seasoned service members. And on behalf of the entire Joint Force, thank you for being such a huge part of what enables all the men and women of uniform to maintain the combat edge necessary to prevail on the battlefield. We're excited to partner and glad to be on this journey with you. Thanks for help. Thanks for making a difference. And have a great ITSEC. Thank you.